In a previous video, I printed this auger as is on the Bamboo Labs X1 carbon. One thing I've done differently here is I took off the bottom fillet. The reason for doing this is because we need to make this such that it can be printed on both the FDM and the SLA printer. One of the goals is to print this with zero support material. The issue with printing this on an SLA printer is that it's so heavy that it will end up popping off the bed. There's not enough surface area on the bottom for it to stick. Because this prints upside down on an SLA printer versus right side up, you have all that weight wanting to pull this thing off of the bed. So how do we solve this problem? What we're going to do is we're going to go to the bottom and create a new sketch. Now we're going to create a circle and we're going to add a disc, 3.25 inches, to the bottom here. Let's go ahead and extrude that down. Now we have a disc on the bottom of the auger. Now we're going to grab our fillet tool and we're going to add those to 3 different sections. And now we have our auger such that the auger is actually 3D printable on an SLA printer from the bottom out through the top. One additional thing we're going to do is we actually want to make this auger useful. So to make this useful, we need a shaft. So what we're going to do is actually make another sketch at the top. We're going to grab our polygon tool and we're going to put a polygon and we're going to make this for 3/8 inch hex material. So we want hex and we want to make this, let's make it a little bit bigger than 3/8. Let's do 0.381. The next thing we want to do is we want to take that sketch and we want to extrude it and remove through everything. And now, after we print this auger, we can take a 3/8 hex shaft and then we can actually have a shaft on our auger. Now this auger is definitely printable on an FDM printer, but one thing that we need to take into consideration when printing on SLA is cupping. Cupping is an issue that occurs when you have a hole like this that's going through your part all the way down to the bottom. Now there's 2 ways to solve cupping. One, you can actually add a raft such that the auger does not sit flush on the build plate. But for the purposes of this demo, we want to print this right on the build plate on both the FDM and the SLA printer. So to solve that problem, such that we can have zero support material on either auger, on either printer, we need to add a channel to allow air to escape, such that there's no suctioning that will occur. To do this, it's pretty simple. All we're going to do is we're going to grab a certain side of this and create a sketch. Let's go down here and let's create a circle. Let's make that circle 3 millimeters. Let's grab that sketch and let's extrude. Let's remove it through all. Check. And you can see now that we have a channel coming out of the auger. This will now allow us to print this on an SLA printer and we'll get no cupping. All right, so let's go ahead and get this thing printed. What we've done is we've clicked and dragged the STL file, which I exported from Onshape, into Preform, which is Formlabs Slicer. Now I've done nothing but paste it in here. And already it's telling me some information like the volume, how much milliliters of material we're going to use, how many layers there are, and if I hit this button here, we can get a time estimate. So in this case, it's going to take 4 hours and 34 minutes. And to reiterate, it's going to take 4 hours and 34 minutes to print this auger at a 0.1 millimeter layer height. And in this case, I'm using the clear V5 resin. So we're going to go ahead and look and see how that's built upon itself all the way up through the top. We see there's no cupping detected because at the bottom we've added our little recess, and now we can go ahead and get this thing printed. One thing to note before printing this is that the slicer is telling us that the model needs more support. Through testing, I've already discovered that in this case, this doesn't need any support material. And one of the goals of this is to show that we can print this on both the FDM and the SLA printer with no support material. So let's go ahead and get this printed. All right, so now we have it printed. Unfortunately, I tried to use the time lapse and it didn't work. So we just have to see the result here. And I'll go ahead and lift up the hood and we can see it was printed with no support material. And it looks like the quality is perfect. And let's go ahead and we're gonna take this off of the build platform now and we're gonna wash it. All right, so we have our part off of the printer. We're gonna go ahead and put it into the basket here. It fits sideways. And we're gonna hit start. And that's going to put it down and wash it for 5 minutes in isopropyl alcohol, which is 91%. And there you can see it's just agitating the water, and it will do this for 5 minutes, and when it's done, it will automatically lift that build platform up, and we can take the part off once it's dry. Here it is coming up out of the wash, now that the wash is complete, and we're going to leave it there to dry for about 10 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and put it into the cure station. And finally, now that our part is dry, we put it into the cure station, and the cure station allows you to select the specific type of resin. In this case, we used the clear resin V5, and it will basically cure it for 1 minute. This time is different depending on the resin, and there's also temperature settings that are also different dependent on the resin. But luckily, Formlabs makes it super easy where it will auto-select the settings for you depending on the resin that you've chosen when you go to cure it. And now that we have cured and washed our part, we can see the final product here, which is beautiful SLA printed auger in their clear resin. And one cool thing about this auger is I specifically designed it to accept a stainless steel shaft that can be pushed through, and you can see it in the center there, such that we can grab and rotate that auger and agitate whatever it is that we want to use the auger for.